Johnny. Hello, Kakti. Hello, everyone. Yay. Okay. Yay, technology. I'm getting better and better at this every single week. So I've got this going on the Moan app, I've got this going on Facebook, and I've got this going on YouTube. So if anyone would like to actually watch, I am at Dating Kinky on YouTube. And if you would just like to listen, I am I'm on the Moan app as well. So for those of you who want to listen and possibly even join in the conversation, the Moan app actually allows you to share via audio. So let's get this started. Hi, everyone. I am Nookie, or Miss Nookie if you prefer an honorific. My pronouns are she, hers, and I am the founder of Dating Kinky. Today, we are going to be talking about when your partner dislikes or disapproves of someone in your life. Now, for those of you who do not yet know me, I am a hedonistic, dominant, cuckoldress pimptress who is polyamorous and monoromantic. That's a lot of words. The point I'd like you to get out of this is that I am ethically non-monogamous. So in the cases that I'm going to be talking about and that I'm most familiar with, I'm going to be talking about other partners, like love partners, sex partners, date mates, bull friends, what have you. However, this information is just as good and just as important for when your partner dislikes or disapproves of your best friend, of someone in your family. So there are a lot of ways to work through and around this that we're going to be talking about. And I'm going to start off with an example that I wrote up many years ago. It's Throwback Thursday today. This is what I do when I go live. So I share with you something that I created several years ago, and then I talk about it with you and engage you with your comments and your questions and your ideas. So let's get started. And if you have any questions, do not hesitate. Those of you on Facebook or YouTube, pop those into the chat. And those of you on Moan, I will absolutely pause and give you the opportunity to raise your hand and come up and join me at various intervals. So I'm going to tell you a story. It's not my story, but I've had more than a few of these. I'm sure you have too. In this case, a couple started playing with a female submissive. She would come to their home and they always had a great time. She was a college student, nice and easy to get along with. And then one time when she visited, she just mentioned offhand that she uses an illicit drug and she deals in it. It helps to pay her college bills. She didn't think that was a big deal. But the man in the couple didn't ever want her in their house again. He said that he considered her one of the lowest forms of life because the product she peddles kills people. His partner accused him of unfairly judging her. She said that this girl doesn't bring the drug into their house, so it's kind of not fair, right? The man then doubled down. He showed his partner numerous websites of what the drug does to people, that it's the second most addicting drug that's known, and it destroys the body and mind. Well, she countered with, this girl is not responsible for other people's choices. She's taking advantage of a free market. Now, let me pause for a minute. Whether you agree with one or the other of them is not necessarily important here. The thing that matters is they both had opinions, right? They both had ideas and they fought over this thing around and around and around, never reaching agreement. The arguments got entrenched. Neither of them was willing to budge, and the pain of accusations flung during these arguments was hurting both of them. So what to do? Now, I've not been in this exact situation before, but when I've been in similar situations, it seems almost impossible to solve from the inside. Then I realized it's really quite simple. There are two things that need to be decided in a case like this. One, is this person still allowed in the house, in the life, in whatever? Are these things still allowed to happen? And two, how are decisions made in your relationship? Okay. Now, I'll be clear. The second question is the most important. That's the one that needs to be answered first, because that will inform the answer to the first question. So in this case, he needs to forget trying to win the argument with facts on websites. That's using logic and science to win an argument of emotion, right? What's missing here is the process of listening to one another, regardless of the outcome. Do y'all understand where I'm going with this? So, how are we going to listen to each other, even in the middle of a heated argument? Maybe one that's been going on for days or weeks, right? Regardless of what the outcome is, how do we show our love and respect for each other in the middle of these heated discussions? Okay. So, first step, take a break. Let tempers cool. Set a time to discuss it. 2 or 3 days is usually a good amount of time to let things cool down, but also not to make it feel like you're avoiding it, right? Or not coming back to it. So make a policy and set time to come back to it. Second step, both of you write answers to some questions. Now, what those questions might be is going to depend on the situation. But the fourth question is going to be the most important in every situation. So the first three are going to be customized to this situation. One, how would I feel? And again, both partners are writing these answers down. How would I feel if the playtimes were to continue? Two, how would I feel if they were to end? Three, why does it matter to me whether they continue or not? And then four, is it okay to continue playtimes or whatever, dating or whatever it is, when one partner does not consent? Hi, Wenchie. Lovely to see you. So once both of you are done writing and you get through that 2 to 3 day cooling down period, when you come back together, swap those writings and read each other's point of view. Then resume the discussion. So let's talk a little bit more about number 4. Is it okay to continue fill in the blank when one partner does not consent? This is the key in many of these types of arguments that can stop them in their tracks. So first, it's important to get in your head answered. Why would you want to choose a path in a long-term relationship that would make your partner feel uncomfortable? Now, I'm not asking you that, and you will not be asking yourself that based or coming from a judgy place, right? I don't want you to feel judgy about that. Why would you want to choose a path in a long-term relationship that might make your partner feel uncomfortable? That can be asked very judgmentally. Well, why would you want to make me feel uncomfortable? Well, there are good reasons. There are absolutely good reasons, and you need to know what your reasons are. Like, Let's say that you have to choose this path for your own happiness or financial well-being, right? This is where the first three questions that we ask come into play. Whether it's okay to continue playtimes when one partner does not consent cuts to the heart of the matter. However, how the discussion is handled around the first three questions is handled will make the difference in moving forward, whether you're going to do so with resentments or whether you'll happily find the right solution for the both of you. Remember that the final result is often not as important as how good both of you feel about it. So make an effort to understand your partner and make sure your partner understands you, right? That's a great place to begin. And that's why we put those questions into play. A few tips. Use calm language. I consider her one of the lowest life forms because the product she is peddling kills people. Not calm language. In fact, it's very dramatically over the top. Might be true. And I'm not saying to be dishonest. Don't be dishonest. Like that's a great way to, ruin a relationship, to be dishonest. However, simply saying, I don't approve of those choices and I feel unsafe with her in my home should be enough to say what needs to be said. And then if there are questions, answer them without hyperbole, exaggeration, over dramatization, right? This is your partner. You need to trust that they are going to listen to your words without you having to make them bigger and louder and more dramatic to get your point across. Y'all with me on this one? Because I know we do it. Every single one of us do it. Every one of us has done this, right? But we don't need to. And if we get in the habit of doing that, then we're never going to know how to talk to our partner in a calm way. And we're never going to train ourselves and our partners to interact calmly. Does that make sense? Okay. Judgments are not necessary. So here's a really important thing to understand. Judgment makes people feel defensive. When you tell somebody that you disapprove of them seeing this person, you disapprove of them interacting with this person, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, you are essentially telling them you cannot trust them to take care of themselves, to make their own life decisions, right? So let's try to avoid judging the people in our lives. Let's try to make sure that the people in our lives feel accepted, right? Do your best to understand your partner's point of view and see it not as wrong, but as valid and different from your own. Now, I'm gonna do a little editorializing here, because when you came together way back when, assuming that you're in a partnership now, you loved what you had in common, but you also loved your differences. You loved what each of you brought to the table. And that means you will not always agree. It also, though, does not mean that one of you is wrong. Different lives, different loves, different perspectives, right? So understand your partner's point of view as valid and different from your own. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this after I get through this original flashback. So If you know for sure that at least one of you is going to be unhappy with the decision, whichever way it goes, then discuss how critical the issue is, how much upset it has the potential to cause, and discuss whether there are measures that can be put into place to help balance that out. Because there are some situations in which there's no real good solution, right? So, how do we minimize the harm done, reduce resentment, and show each other that we are here supporting and loving each other, even if we're not loving the situation? Right? You with me on that? It's not easy, not at all. Luckily, it is simple. Just follow the steps. Love each other and keep that love in the forefront, right? Really try to see the other person's point of view. It's rewarding and it helps you break those unending round robin arguments. Okay, does anybody have any questions on the throwback article? Because I have some comments and some thoughts about some experiences I've had since 2016 that I can bring up, and a few comments from that original article that I thought really illustrated a few things. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions and I'm not seeing any hands raised on Moan, so let's move forward. Okay, Red Hot said, for the longest time, I didn't realize I was a reactive communicator instead of a proactive one. Thank you for this. So I think that that's important. What I'm trying to do when I talk to you about things like this is I'm trying to give you the tools to be proactive about your relationships rather than reactive, to come to the table prepared, at least with an idea of what to do in these types of situations, right? And again, I am speaking to what you might do when your partner dislikes or disapproves of another partner, a date mate, a lover, a bull friend. However, all of this applies to mother-in-law situations, to friends, to business associates, right? All of these things still apply. I had a partner who really disliked my best friend. It was a mess. At the time, I didn't really have all of the tools I needed to work through that in a way that would make both of us happy with the situation. So in my own life, this has come up multiple times, and especially 6 years after writing this, I have a new perspective and additional experiences. I'm going to talk about that now. So in the original writing, I said, what is missing here is the process of listening to one another regardless of the outcome. And I believe that's true, but I also now have come to believe that there is a lot more to that. What's really required, more than just listening, is working together rather than against each other. We are both working towards finding the best solution for each of us rather than trying to fight it out and convince the other person they are wrong and we are right. Because I've come to realize that if we feel we are at cross purposes, listening to each other just actually fuels the fire. Because we're not listening with a desire to make the other person right and validated and loved and to find the best solution for both of us. But instead, we're listening to the bits and bobs that we can attack and pick apart and refute. And when we're doing that, we've already both lost. So that's the key. Now, in the original writing, I asked 4 questions. 1, how would I feel if the playtimes were to continue? 2, how would I feel if they were to stop? 3, why does it matter so much to me whether they continue or not? And 4, is it okay to continue playtimes when one partner does not consent? In my relationship, the answer to number 4 is always yes. Always. In the past 6 years, I am more solidly of the mindset that every human has a right to choose for themselves. I will not veto another human from their lives. I will not veto your family. I will not veto your lover. I will not veto your friend. I will not veto that creepy business partner that like you hang out with that like makes me feel icky. I won't ever veto another human from somebody's life. That said, I will 100% set my boundaries and maintain them. I will speak my mind and expect my partner to listen, to validate, and to value my thoughts and experiences, even if they disagree and make their own choices. Boundaries are critical. Being able to set your boundaries and maintain them, and being heard and understood and validated. So I'd also said there are 2 things that need to be decided. 1, is that other person still allowed in the house? And 2, how are decisions made in your relationship? So decisions in my relationship are made 100% equally unless I choose to override. This is what a woman in charge relationship or a femdom relationship looks like to us. Very simple. Generally speaking, decisions are 100% equal. We are both valued as human beings. And if there is a stalemate, and again, I don't mean a stalemate like, okay, we disagreed, so boop, I override. I mean, if we actually have a conversation that goes on for a long time, I have the ability to override. This is what our relationship looks like. I do not override often or lightly because I value my partner and I respect him. But in our negotiated dynamic, it is my right to override him. Okay? This is important. Now, you may have a different relationship. You may have a vanilla relationship without a power exchange. And in a case like that, who does the overriding? Well, you might parcel that out, right? One of you might be better at finances, right? So that person can always override when it comes to talking about how to plan for the future and how to put money away and how much to save. And another one of you may be the one who is doing 90% of the work with the kids, right? And maybe that person gets to override disagreements about the children because that's the person who works with them all of the time. I don't know what your situation is. That's why you have to have that discussion. How are decisions made in our relationship? And what happens as a corollary if we disagree? How do we break that tie. That's one of the things that I personally feel a negotiated power exchange relationship really helps with, because there's always a tiebreaker. You always know who it is, right? So going back to the two questions, number two, I make the final decision if we don't come to an agreement in my relationship. Number one, though, is that other person still allowed in the house, for example? That would be based on my personal boundaries. I believe that anyone has a right to their home where they live, feeling safe to them. And anxiety about potential legal issues or harm within that space should be fully validated and honored, even if it's that person makes me feel comfortable. Please don't bring them into the home we share. Right? Validated and honored. Shared private space, in my opinion, requires mutual consent. My body and how I use it does not require mutual consent. This is my body. My mind and how I use it does not require mutual consent. This is my mind. Shared private space, though, where two people live and two people retreat from the world to center themselves and feel safe, requires mutual consent. Are you all in agreement with this on me? The idea that if you share a space, both of you should feel safe there. Good. I'm seeing some hearts. I'm seeing a yes. And of course, that can be tricky when people disagree, right? Like, I want to be able to like bring my best friend over and have dinner here and whatever when my partner is maybe out of the house, or, maybe off on vacation, or maybe just doing something else. I want to be able to bring my best friend over. And yet, maybe I can't do that and have my partner still feel safe and validated by me. It is what it is. I also gave a few tips, and I said, remember this one, use calm language. Oh, I do love when I'm able to just like say things like, use calm language. It'll make things so much easier. Sometimes calm language isn't as accessible as others, right? Humans do human things. Sometimes we're not fucking calm, right? When possible, though, consider your words, and more importantly, consider the impact of your words on the other person and how they might interpret them. For example, saying, they are the scum of the earth, may not be taken as you just expressing your opinion about this other person, but could also be taken as a veiled or not so veiled attempt to force your partner to take an action. Okay, show of hands, show of yeses, show of hearts, whatever. How many of you have had somebody in your life who disapproved of somebody else in your life, and whenever they talked about them, you felt like them talking negatively was trying to convince you that you needed to remove that other person from your life? Yeah. And maybe that's not what you mean at all. But if it's not what you mean at all, you need to be clear about that. Make clear what you do and do not mean. RK says, I have been the disapproved of person. Oh, yeah, me too. Oh, yeah. Do your best, I said this, to understand your partner's point of view and see it not as wrong, but as valid and different from your own. This is key because their experience is theirs and they have a right to it. Think about that. Their experience is theirs and they have a right to that experience. If you want your experience and your views to matter in your relationship, then theirs must as well, even when you disagree. I'm going to say that again for emphasis. If you want your experience and views to matter in your relationship, then theirs must as well, even when you disagree. For example, I have said in the past, I need you to understand and invalidate my experiences with person A, even when you do not have the same experiences. My experience of them does not invalidate yours, just as yours does not invalidate mine. Sharing these experiences together can give us both more information. Also, I do not require you to do anything about my experiences with person A. These that we're having right now are personal discussions to further understanding in our relationship and to illustrate why I might set some of the boundaries I set. Are you with me on that? And for those of you on Facebook and YouTube, I did just post that into the comments, into the chat, so that you have that and you can reread it if you need to. I will tell you this. That was not easy to find the words to say because it is so easy to feel like somebody like your partner. I say to this partner, I don't like this person. They seem to not like me. They have said some things that I feel are mean and nasty and whatever it is, right? We've all been there. And then when your partner says, they're not like that. They're not really, you're just misunderstanding them. That is not validation. That is defensive. And understand that if and when your partner does something like this to you, they are defending themselves from the possibility that you are going to ask them to remove this person from their life, from both of your lives. And that's why it's important to be able to say, I am sharing this experience with you because you are my partner and I love you. And I don't require you to do anything about my experience. You just need to understand that my experience is different from yours. And this is why I'm going to set the boundaries I set. Does that make sense? Because that is really, really not easy to say. And also, it's not easy to mean because deep down inside, oftentimes we may say that, but we really want our partners to like get this person out of their life. But at the same time, we don't want them to get this person out of their life because that would harm them, right? Especially if it's a parent or a best friend. And we don't want to harm our partners. Cobalt said, would you say that clarifying and strengthening emotional boundaries can help with finding and using calm language? Absolutely. The more you practice your calm language, the more you practice loving somebody and accepting them and validating them through your arguments, the easier it is to be calm and to use calm language and to think things through. And the more you have these conversations, the more you understand how your partner feels, how your partner might interpret what you're saying. Hey, Cosmopolite. How are you? Hello.
Hey there. So I just wanted to add, I think like one of the biggest mistakes people make, going back to your first point, is trying to have these conversations when things are very heated.
Yes.
And I think that one of the best ways to mitigate a lot of these problems is to start learning about stress responses, trauma responses, or just recognizing like in your body when you feel upset, angry, heated, and being able to say, hey, I want to address this, but not in this way.
Absolutely. 100%. And thank you for suggesting that and bringing it up. So understanding when you are beginning to not be calm is important, because when you are not calm, it's very, very difficult to put yourself in a state where calm language is being used, right? And not just calm language, because there's something else there that matters. A lot of our communication is what? Not verbal. So you could be saying something relatively calm, but not giving the impression of calmness, right? So let's say, for example, yes, Cosmopolite.
I was going to say, I have definitely gotten myself into trouble with that, especially texting or messaging, where like one or both of us are heated, and things just do not translate the same way because you're not, you don't have that nonverbal body language. So that's like another piece of it too, I think, is if you are sensing that someone is getting upset or heated, trying to not just put a pin in it, but also if you're texting or messaging, trying to move it to it, like a person-to-person conversation can definitely help too.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna come right back to that. So let's say that we're going back to the calm words I found to say. And I am saying also, and this is important, I do not require you to do anything about the experiences I share with you about person A. These are discussions. It's important to me that we understand, how we think in our relationship, and that you understand why I might set some of the boundaries I set, right? That's one way of saying it. Another way of saying it is, and just so you know, I don't require you to do anything about my experiences with person A. These are just personal discussions to further understanding in our relationship and to illustrate why I might set some of the boundaries I set. Right? the nonverbal aspects of that, the tone of voice, the body language, the tenseness, give off very different vibes. And so if you are in the middle of not calm, it's going to be really hard to communicate calm. But to go back to what Cosmopolite said about texting or speaking or whatever, sometimes you are in a verbal conversation and your engagement is too intense, and it can help to separate. One person goes into another room, one person leaves the house, and to continue the conversation via text or via email or even via phone without so much input. Some people get overstimulated in conversations like that, right? And some people might be very tense about how they're saying the words, and it might come across as being very tense about whether or not you will do this thing, right? So it's important to realize that we have so many modes of communication available to us, and we should take advantage of those. So often, and I talk about this in my conflict resolution protocols, often what I'll do is I'll say, okay, I'm going to end this argument right now. Here's what we're going to do moving forward until we have this discussion again. We're going to talk about this again within 2 to 3 days. Usually I'll say like at Tuesday night dinner or whatever it is. And between now and then, or within the next 48 hours, I would like you to send me an email with the points and your thoughts that you have to make on this, so that I can get everything that you want to say without you feeling constrained by time, without me interrupting you, etc. And I actually have a piece coming up on this here pretty soon. But switching those channels and allowing that cool down and not being face to face can matter. It can make a huge difference. And RK is saying when nonverbals and verbals conflict, it can come off as passive aggressive. Oh, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. And passive aggressive is really hard to get away from. And it's also something so many of us instinctually recognize and feel resentment towards, because it's common in so much communication that we've experienced in our lives. So putting all of this effort in is not easy. Finding the right words to communicate is not easy, and you're going to make mistakes, and it's okay. But here's the thing. Once you get in this habit, it frees up so much of your lives and emotional energy to be able to communicate, right? So here are the questions that I have for you. Have you had experiences, I'm guessing the answer is going to be yes, in your relationships, whether monogamous or non-monogamous, where your partner intensely disliked or disapproved of someone in your life? I know RK has already said that they've been the other partner, the one that was disliked or disapproved of. Also, have you had experiences in your relationships where you disliked or disapproved of somebody they brought into your life, whether it was a family member, whether it was another partner, a lover, or whatever? And how did you handle it? And looking back, how did it go, and how might you change that moving forward, if at all? So unless we have any additional questions or comments or experiences, oh, here's a good one. Cobalt. What's the difference between dislike, disapprove, and jealousy? Oh, okay. So, yeah, that's a tough one. And honestly, what I would say is that's not something that anybody can sort out except the person who's feeling these things, right? Um, and the challenge is it's often a combination, because if I'm feeling particularly jealous of someone, I'm going to look for things to nitpick about, and I will probably end up disliking and disapproving of them. However, I can dislike and disapprove of people and not feel fear that they are threatening my relationship, right? Not feel fear that they can take something away from me that I currently have. And that's the key to jealousy. Jealousy is not so much an anger or a dislike or a disapproval space. It is a space where we are fearful of losing something important to us. The challenge is that jealousy is entirely internal. If we feel jealous, there is nothing a partner can do to make us not feel jealous. I mean, they can not see this person, but then what? They don't see the next person and the next person and the next person and the next person and the next person. Like, jealousy is something that we have to deal with. It is a fear-based trauma response. Dislike, though, disapproval, those are not the same. If somebody is shitty to me, I'm going to dislike them. I don't have to feel jealous. And I also don't have to disapprove of them. I can just be like, you know what? I don't like them. They're shitty. Don't bring them around me. Simple. I don't have to disapprove of them. I can quite like somebody and still disapprove of them. Like, I can like people who are, just amazing, fun people to be around. And yet, I know that when it comes to playing, they have a tendency to use drugs and alcohol, and they play unsafe, and I disapprove of them. And so I would bring that up to my partner. I don't like the way that this person does this, and this, and it frightens me for your safety. I don't approve of them. How are we going to work through this, right? So the thing is, as the partner on the receiving end, the partner with the person in my life that my partner dislikes or disapproves of or is jealous of, I don't have to determine which of those three it is. I just have to deal with it and figure it out. Cosmopolite, you have more to say?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think the biggest difference between dislike and jealousy is like jealousy is often something where like it's very internal, where it usually highlights like the need for someone to work out something with themselves, like you said, perhaps like a past trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I feel like dislike is just more about a conflict of personal values.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I would say dislike is like a conflict of personalities, and disapprove is a conflict of personal values.
Okay, yeah, I agree with you on that. Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, awesome. So T-Crock and Rolla. Whatever my wife does that makes me jealous is a good thing. I know that feeling. I live with that feeling. He's a wonderful person. Okay, let's see. We've got Robin here. Marinelli. How do I deal with when my partner tells me he doesn't like the guys I meet for friendship when he is coming from a place of jealousy or trauma? I will tell you this. I actually, my two major relationships before the one I'm in ended partially because of that. So it is a challenge because, especially in like a monogamous relationship, it's really hard to work through the feelings of jealousy, because what you're going to get is I trust you, I don't trust them. But the I don't trust them usually involves things that they're going to do with you, right? And so that's a level right there that needs to be worked through, right? Because the challenge is they have trauma based on being left for somebody else, or not being liked as much as somebody else, or whatever it is. And that's frustrating. So what I have done moving forward in my life is I have said, it is not your right to gatekeep who I am friends with. I will not bring them into our shared home, but I reserve the right to go out and spend time with them elsewhere, or to spend time with them around other groups of people. I also, and this would be a reassurance, I also absolutely will tell you honestly what my relationship with them is. Now, in the case of non-monogamy, I would tell them, am I sleeping with them? Am I interested in sleeping with them? Did we make out last night? Things like that. In the case of monogamous relationships, then I could simply say, I promise you, I'm not cheating. And maybe it would be a good idea for you and I to discuss and set boundaries on what cheating looks like to us, because I want to make sure I don't cross any boundaries, and I'm going to keep my friendships. Okay. Any other questions, comments, anything? Well, fantastic. Thank you all for joining me today. I really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure being here with you. Thank you for bringing me your questions. Thank you for bringing me your experiences and your thoughts and your ideas. And keep an eye out for next week. I'm going to be doing, what am I going to be doing next week? That's a good question. Here, let me take a look. It might help if I had that in place, right? Let's see. Next week, what am I doing for Throwback Thursday? Oh, for those who stand up after trauma. So we did touch a little bit today on trauma and how trauma can actually cause some of the things we were talking about. So next week, we're going to be talking about people standing up after trauma and what that means and what that looks like. So thanks to all of you for joining me. If you missed any of this discussion and you're interested in going back and watching this again, or listening to it, or catching up on the chat, and maybe seeing that note I put in there, the copy and paste for that little here's how I do it with my partner thing, you can find it on YouTube at Dating Kinky, the Dating Kinky account. Please hit like, hit subscribe. I love you all. Have a most wonderful day.